as a result of various things that happened during the Iraq War. I also think that people are concerned about what our general policies are. What troubles me a lot, I hate it when people blame America. I really do. I am, first of all, as a naturalized American, I am so grateful for everything that the United States not only did for my country, but what for the rest of the world and immigrants. And so I hate it, but I do, when people are critical of us, but I do think that we lost our way on a number of issues. The war in Iraq, I'm afraid, will go down in history as the greatest disaster in American foreign policy. And that's really saying something. It means that I think it's worse than Vietnam. Not in terms of the number of Americans who died, because more died in Vietnam, or Vietnamese versus Iraqis, but in terms of what it did to our reputation.
Well, let me just interrupt you here, because the Bush administration's response to that, their flip side of the coin is the world is a better place without Saddam Hussein in power in Iraq.
Well, this is what I said about this, is 9/11 was a horrendous event. And I think President Bush was absolutely right in the way he reacted versus Afghanistan. But he made a link between Saddam Hussein and Osama bin Laden that did not exist. And we should not have taken our eye off the ball in Afghanistan, which is now a much more difficult situation than before. And when I was asked about what I thought at the time, I said the following things. I said the same things about Saddam Hussein as President Bush said, and I said them for 8 years. I think that Saddam Hussein was everything that President Bush said he was. And he was a terrible person, and the world is better off without him. But the bottom line is that I asked, why now, or why then? Why did we have to do the war then when the people who hit us came from Afghanistan? Or what next? I had been among, there was a group of what I call former people that were invited into the Pentagon for a briefing. And when I asked Doug Feith specifically what the plans were after the invasion, they didn't make any sense to me. And so I could understand the why of the war, but I didn't understand why now or what next. And unfortunately, that war was not, the invasion part worked because our military is brilliant, but there was not a real plan for it. And if you look at what President Obama is going to face now in terms of that nexus of issues of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and India, that is a huge piece of work that he has to do. And I believe if President Bush had kept his eye on the ball in Afghanistan, we might not be in this particular mess.
Yeah. I think we want us to go to the audience. Is that, Kamal, is that what you were? All right. If there's any volunteers, if you have a question, they have a microphone right there at the center. Yes, go ahead, sir, right, come on up.
Paul Bonicelli, I'm the provost of Houston Baptist University. I spent about 3 years promoting democracy with the Bush administration and had the great pleasure to work with NDI and Ken Wallach and your organization. Mm-hmm. My question for you is, I think I know the answer, but would you give us an idea what you think the Obama administration will do in terms of support for democracy around the world?
Well, it is my belief, on the basis of conversations and speeches, that there clearly will continue to be support for democracy, that it is the United States that is our best export, frankly. But the bottom line is you can't impose democracy. It goes back to what I was concerned about with our reputation. Imposing democracy is an oxymoron. You have to be able to support it in a variety of places. And you also have to understand how democracy has to deliver. People want to eat and vote. And so there has to be that combination of development assistance and support for democracy. I hope that it happens. We have to restore the good name of democracy. I think that is one of the major agenda items that I had in my book, on my memo book, that I think is essential. And I'm very proud of NDI. And interestingly enough, John McCain is the president of the Republican Institute, the International Republican Institute, and we do a lot of work together abroad, specifically to show the importance of bipartisanship, that different parties can have coalitions and work together.
Susan Savage from Oklahoma, Madam Secretary. It's great to have you. As a follow-up to just what you were stating about restoring democracy, could you give us an idea, if you had to develop the blueprint for President-elect Obama, where would you focus your energies at the outset in terms of rebuilding America's excuse me, image around the world and restoring democracy?
Well, I think he has a huge agenda ahead of him. I do hope that one of the first things that's done is to close Guantanamo Bay. I think that that would go a very far way in helping to restore our reputation. When I was secretary, or even before that at the UN, it was very important for the United States to point out where there were human rights violations, where countries were torturing people. And it hurt us a lot, Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo, in terms of being able to be to call other countries on their behavior or actions. I also think that another way, President-elect Obama has made this clear, he did yesterday again, is that he believes in multilateral action, that a lot of the problems that are out there have to be dealt with multilaterally. And I think that by signaling and making clear that we would participate very actively in talks on global climate change, I think that would be another very important signal. And then very quickly showing the importance of our alliance structures. And basically, I think his team is a very good beginning on this. Susan Rice at the UN is somebody that knows exactly how the UN should operate and will be a very good partner. And Hillary Clinton, I know from working with her, is going to have this she might very well do kind of a listening tour. It would help a lot if the U.S. listened instead of just ordered people around all the time. So I do think that, but specifically closing Guantanamo and getting actively involved in the climate change issue are two very important signals, plus then getting deeply involved in trying to solve the Middle East peace talks, dealing with people we don't like Iran and North Korea. So it's a huge agenda. But he's got a very good team in place.
Okay, sir. You are the fortunate one. The final question. Your name and your business or organization.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for being here. My name is Jeff Lausch. I teach geography at the University of Houston, Clear Lake. And my question follows up on the previous questions, and that is to draw your attention or get your response to a newly independent Kosovo and the generation of young Madeleines growing up there, and to get your thoughts about the U.S.'s relationship with Kosovo specifically and the implications for an independent Kosovo in the Balkans. So.
First of all, I'm delighted to see geography teachers. One of the things I used to do as secretary was to travel around. I had a website, Travels with the Secretary, and I went to schools, and in American schools there are a lot of flat maps with the Western Hemisphere in the middle with those little flaps on either side. And I would always ask for a globe, and I would turn it around and I'd say the majority of the people live on the other side of the globe. And I do think, so geography is one of my favorite subjects. I think that it is the way that Kosovo came into being was a very bloody way. There's no question about it. The people of Kosovo, I think, had been treated very badly by Milosevic. There were a number of different ways to achieve peace there. Milosevic never wanted to pick up on any of them, and he began a massive ethnic cleansing. There were other ways also to develop autonomy for Kosovo, and there were different plans. I do believe that an independent Kosovo can play a constructive role within the Balkans. What has to happen, though, is that the Balkans, and this is why we got involved in Bosnia as well as in Kosovo, is that it was the missing piece of the puzzle that the first President Bush talked about, was a Europe whole and free. That is what happened when the Berlin Wall came down, and the Balkans were the missing piece. And so what I would hope would happen is that the Balkans, one country after another, would become a part of Europe, and that's the direction an independent Kosovo has to go in. And therefore, there needs to be a support for what's going on in these countries to involve them economically and politically so that it becomes a stable region.